Welcome to the JMC True Crime Channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's case will leave you feeling both horrified and amazed by just how far one can and will go to survive. This is the story of Alison Botha, so strap in and let's get stuck in. So, let's go back to 1994 to Port Elizabeth, South Africa, the very place where Alison was both born and raised. Alison was only 27 years old at this time, and this was the post-apartheid era. And just in case anyone doesn't know, apartheid was a time where racism was legal. It was institutionalized. This goes back to 1940s and ended in the early 1990s. So it's quite possible that you might know someone that lived through apartheid. Port Elizabeth, now known as Gqeberha, has many names: the Friendly City, Algoa Bay, and Nelson Mandela Bay. It is one of the largest cities in South Africa and the cultural and economic centre of the Eastern Cape. On the night of the 18th of December 1994, Alison had been enjoying her evening, relaxing with her co-workers, having fun. Doing what 20-somethings do. Around 1 a.m, Alison was returning home, having just dropped off a co-worker. However, she wasn't able to find a parking spot where she would usually park her car. This meant that she had to park a little further afield, not too far, because the spot was still within walking distance of her home. So, Alison parks her car into this aforementioned parking space, and when she tries to exit her car so she can walk to her home, a man appears. A man holding a knife. This man's name was Frans du Toit, and Frans du Toit was a hideous man. Upon threatening Alison with the knife, du Toit told her to get into the back seat and that he wouldn't hurt her. "Do as I say, and you'll be fine. Do as I say, and nothing bad will happen." That's what he said to her, to reassure her, to placate her, whatever you want to call it. And Alison, terrified, alone, isolated, she wanted to live. She wanted to live, and to do that meant doing what he said, and so Alison complied. Now, the next part of Alison's story that we are going to cover is horrific, it's gruesome, it's nauseating, and most certainly not for the faint of heart. So please do bear that in mind if you are going to continue to listen. The word miracle is often associated with Alison's story, and rightfully so, in my opinion, because what happens next is almost indescribable. So we're back to that fateful night of the 18th of December 1994. Alison has just been threatened by this man, Frans du Toit, with a knife. He has forced himself into her car and abducted her. He's driving her car. She doesn't know where they're going. She's just terrified. And du Toit is telling Alison that he just needs to borrow her car for a while. Du Toit drives Alison's car to another area in Gqeberha, formerly known as Port Elizabeth, to pick up his accomplice, Theuns Kruger. It wasn't long until they drove to a secluded part of the city, and then the two men told Alison of their intention to have sex with her, their intention to rape her. Per her own admission, Alison decided not to resist. She believed that cooperating with the two men would be the very thing to save her life. It is absolutely abhorrent that she even had to think this way. After they were done with that particular act, they decided to silence her permanently. They attempted to suffocate her, but that failed. Frustrated, Alison's attackers stabbed her 37 times in the abdomen. 37 times. And that likely would have been it. They would have believed that she was dead at that point, except they saw her leg twitch. Once again, the pair were frustrated, and in a final attempt to end Alison's life, they stabbed her in the neck 17 times. No one can survive that. That's what one of them said. Famous last words, I guess. Miraculously, Alison was still alive and conscious, despite the trauma she had just experienced. When the two men had stabbed Alison in her abdomen 37 times, they had disemboweled her. To disembowel someone means that you have removed some or all of their internal organs. That's what all those slashes were doing to Alison. And when they stabbed her in the neck 17 times, they had done so viciously that they had almost severed her head from her body. That's right, they had almost decapitated her. And yet she was still breathing. Later, Alison would say, and I quote, "I realized my life was too valuable to let go of, and that gave me the courage to survive." And survive she did. Alison, initially believing that she wouldn't survive, wanted to leave a clue about who had done this to her, so she wrote the names of her attackers in the dirt, and so innocently she wrote that she loved her mum. Soon, she realized that she may still have a chance to survive. Having been deserted by the side of the road, Alison could see some headlights streaking through the bushes, and she knew this was her chance. As she moved towards the headlights, the true extent of her injuries quickly dawned on her. When she pulled herself up, her head started to fall backward, and that is when she realized that she had almost been decapitated. Additionally, she started to feel something slimy protruding from her abdomen. What that was were her intestines. So, I mean this literally, she had to use one hand to hold on to her own head and the other to keep her organs from spilling out. Can you even imagine? Can you even imagine? Alison struggled to see. She fell down many times and thankfully she got back up and she reached the road. She didn't have to wait very long to catch the attention of a motorist. There was a veterinary student named Tian Elard who was visiting Port Elizabeth, again also known as Kyberha, on vacation, and they saw Alison lying in the middle of the road. Tian used his veterinary training to tuck Alison's exposed thyroid back into her neck. The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped organ located in the base of your neck, and it releases hormones that control metabolism and regulates vital bodily functions. So as you can imagine, to see her thyroid exposed outside of her body was extremely alarming. Not to mention the plethora of visible examples of trauma that she had so clearly just sustained. Tian urgently called for emergency services, and Alison was rushed to the hospital. Alison was so clearly on the precipice of death, but she pulled through. She survived. And before long, she was able to identify her attackers from police pictures. They were quickly arrested and named the Ripper Rapists by the press. And you know the reason why Alison survived? It's because none of the 54 stab wounds hit a main artery. That is astounding. And because they didn't hit a main artery, she didn't bleed to death, she was able to keep breathing through her trachea. The Nordhoek Ripper trial, the trial of Dutoit and Kruger, Alison's attackers, captured so much attention that it is now known as one of the most high-profile cases in South African history. Both Dutoit and Kruger pled guilty to 8 charges. Those charges included kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder. They were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in August of 1995. This may have meant the end of the legal case, but this certainly wasn't the end of Alison's suffering. She had physical, emotional, and mental scars from what she had endured. And for Alison, her journey to recovery was to speak about her experience. She travelled all around the world telling her story in at least 35 countries. She's become an inspiration. She's even inspired other survivors to come forward and to tell their stories as well. In 1995, she won the prestigious Rotarian Paul Harris Award for Courage Beyond the Norm, and I think that is so perfectly apt. During her attack, Dutoit had specifically mentioned that he wanted to destroy her reproductive organs. That's why he stabbed her so many times in the abdomen. And when the doctor assessed her injuries, they concluded that she would never be able to conceive a child. And yet, in 2003, another miracle took place when Alison gave birth to her first, her son. And in 2006, her second son. Alison welcomed her 2 boys with her now husband, Alison Botha, whom she reconnected with 1 year after her attack. So, Alison Botha's story is certainly one of survival. But make no mistake, that's not all she is. Once an insurance broker, but now a motivational speaker, a wife, a mother, an incredible woman. She has lived through and overcome so much and is now trying to help others to do the same. What happened to Alison is a reminder of 2 things: moral turpitude and the strength of the human spirit. Thank you to each and every single one of you that has stuck around to this point in the video. It is always appreciated. If you have any story suggestions, make sure you're leaving them in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I will catch you soon.